Hello students, today we have to start with some key terms of economics and later on we have to discuss the last concept of the first module, that is why some economists disagree with certain concepts, because we know in the previous classes what is economics means. It is nothing but it comes from the Greek word oikonomias, which means the household management, how to managing the households. Thereafter, we also know what are the 10 principles of economics. We explain whole component of all the 10 principles with certain assumptions and the examples also be there. Thereafter, we also enter into the concept what is the models are there. The models like the productions possibility frontier, or that is called the productions possibility curve, and the next we also explain the term what is called as circular flow in two sector economy. That means how the money flow and real flow to be takes place both in terms of your money as well as the real, from household to the farm and from household to the farm also, or the vice versa to be there. But in between we take the two market, the product market as well as the factor market. How the circular to be takes place in a clockwise we have to explaining in the previous classes. Today as we discuss the term what are the most important key terms of economics. So, as we know that economics is nothing but the household management, but while managing the household we may come across certain problems are there. Actually, the father of economics is to be known as the Adam Smith. He explained the economics is nothing but it is called as the science of wealth. His intention is to how to capture more and more amount of wealth. But the capturing or accumulation of wealth is not called as economics. Therefore, that definitions is to be criticized by some other modern economist, and thereby Marshall developed the concept of the welfare definitions. His intention is to be not only accumulate the wealth, but with the help of those accumulated wealth, how to we have to improve our welfare. Therefore, his definition is to be concentrated with the term the economics is nothing but the science of welfare. But again that particular definition is to be criticized by the famous economist like called the Llewellyn Robbins. He explained economics is not deal with the accumulation of the wealth, not deal with the how to utilizing those wealth to gain more satisfactions. Rather, we have to come across the two most important concepts, that is called the scarcity and alternative utilizations. Means according to him that the we have limited resources. I mean resources what we have is to be limited, like whether it is the time, whether it is the any natural resources or with the any human resources, whatever the case may be, all kind of resources are to be the limited. But what about the human wants? Human wants are unlimited. Human wants are unlimited. If a particular want to be satisfied, then another one take its place. Therefore, human wants are unlimited. But how to fulfill all the unlimited ends with the limited resources, that the concept of the, I mean there is a problem to be occur, how to utilizing the scarce resources with the unlimited ends. So, that is called the scarcity definitions what the Llewellyn Robbins is to be explained to us. And due to that scarcity and unlimited ends means human wants and means resources. So, human wants are unlimited, but resources the means are scarce. How to fulfill the unlimited ends with the limited resources? In order to fulfilling it, we have to come across certain problems. Those problems is to be like what to produce, how much to produce, how to improve the economic welfare, a choice between the present and future. These things are we have to consider, right. That means as we know what to produce, I mean whether you have to produce the agricultural product or the industrial product, choice between the present and future, whether you have to I mean benefit, I mean you have to be satisfy the present, sacrifice the future, or sacrifice the future, benefit the present, or vice versa. In both the cases, that means the choice is there. So, therefore, this definition is known as the choice, the science of choice. It is a scarcity definition, also it is known as the science of choice. We have to choose between the which is the best one and how much to produce. According to the requirement of the product, according to the requirement we have to produce, no doubt, but how to judge the term how much we have to be producing it, and how to improve the economic welfare also. So, they are the large number of economic problems we have to come across. In order to handle those economic problems, Fisher categorized the entire problem into two parts. One is called the micro problem, second is the macro problems. So, we have to study the two types of economics, one is called the microeconomics and another will be macroeconomics. So, the micro means it is the small, it study about the individual, that means in the first key terms we have to introducing the term what is called the micro, and studying the second one is called the what is called the macro. Microeconomics and macroeconomics, those are the problems. Actually, from the problem it will be categorized, some problem related to the micro problem, some problem related to the macro problems. While you study about the micro, it study about the individual, that means individual firms, individuals, you can take it account the study about the income of the individuals, you can take the demand of a particular individual persons, right. While you take into account the individual concept, whether the firm or it is any particular person's demand or something else, any person's income, saving, all these things, it is the individual concept. Therefore, it is called a micro, it is small, it study about the individuals. And while you deal with these things, we have to study the term what is consumer behavior, how a consumer behave. Obviously, the intention of the consumer to the maximization the satisfactions, right, but how to maximizing the satisfactions, how to accumulate the satisfactions, that means how to measure the utilities, because it is a purely what is a subjective concepts, how much you satisfied while you consuming a particular product. Like for example, suppose you consuming the Golgappa and I am a reporter in front of that particular shop, I have to ask you how much you satisfied, but you are unable to explain how much you satisfied. Take another example, if you enter into the movie hall and watching a particular movie by paying some amount of money, it is a beautiful movie to be there. As a reporter I ask you how much you satisfied, in which you are explaining it, that satisfaction purely subjective concepts. But in economics we have to study that, that means how the consumer to be behave. If you can take into account, if you enter into the particular let us say hotel and consuming some sort of foods, some tiffin to be there, some meal to be there, or it is a lunch or dinner to be there, I ask you after that particular meal how much you satisfied, but you are unable to explaining it, because the satisfaction level you have to judge and accumulating thereafter you have to expressing it. And those things as explaining the term what is called the consumer behavior. That means, in microeconomics you have to cover the term what is called the consumer's behavior, how a consumers behave. Actually, in the same manner how the producer to be behave, that is called the producer's behavior, producer's behavior. Because intention of the consumer is to be the maximization of the satisfaction, and that satisfaction component you have to study in two analysis. One is called the marginal utility analysis, second is called the indifference curve analysis. What are these things? You have to in the latter part, in the higher studies, you have to covering those part while you covering the term what is called the microeconomics. But in this particular course, you also be study about some sort of micro as well as the macro component in this particular curriculum. And the producer's behavior, how the producers behave, like consumer maximize the satisfaction, producer try to maximize his benefit, maximize his profit, and profit to be maximized when he take into account the differences between your revenue, the sales receipt and the cost to be occur in the productions process. Differences between the total revenue and total cost is to calculate the value of the profit. And here the producer's intention to the maximization of the profit. Maximization the profit can be explained either maximizations of your output or minimization of your cost. What is output, what is cost, the latter on in the course we have to cover in this part. Then thereafter you have to study the term let us say market. What is market, what are the different type of market, what are the activities of market, and how the price and the output to be determined in the terms of the different type of market, those things to be covered in case of the market. And the next one is the distribution. So, the distribution in the sense after extracting the revenue, where the salesperson sells it, where the producer receiving some sort of income, how those income to be distributed among the each and every factors of productions. That concept will be covered in case of your distributions. Actually, you have to cover right now what are the main key terms, inside the key terms what are the main factors of productions that we are explaining it, like the land, labor, capital and organizations, how they are to be remunerated in terms of your rent, wage, interest and profit. So, that things to be covered in case of your distributions. And the most important part of your, the last component of your microeconomics, that is called as the welfare. So, the welfare concepts, that means it consists of how the well-being to be takes place, well-being both the consumers as well as the producers. That means we have to take into account the consumer surplus as well as the producer surplus, which is to be covered in the second module, right. After completion of your demand chapter as the supply chapter, you have to enter into the welfare, that is called the welfare concept. Inside the welfare we have to covering the term what is called the consumer surplus as well as the producer surplus. These are the major concepts you have to cover in case of microeconomics. But all the problems not related to the individual, some of the problems related to the as a whole, economy as a whole, like let us say international trade, how the trading to be takes place, how the taxation policy to be takes place, how the government spend its collected revenue, right. Whether the public finance, whether debt, inflation, deflation, all the things, national income, GDP, gross domestic product, net domestic product, all the things to be covered in macroeconomic, because here we have to study the economy as a whole, economy as a whole. I mean aggregation of your micro contribute macro concepts, right. What are the things to be covered to be here? In this case we have to study the term national income, you have to study the term let us say investment, how the investment to be occur in a large scale. Then the next part is to be the employment, output and income, right, all the things to be there. Thereafter consumption, what is the consumption functions, how the income and consumption to be relation to be takes place, right. Then after the completion of your consumptions, investment, employment, income, then come down to the public finance, then come down to the money and banking and international trade and so on. These are the things to be covered in case of your macroeconomics. So, in the first what we start with the term the scarcity definition. From the scarcity definition we find that the large number of problems, those problems to be segregated into two parts, micro problems and macro problem by Fisher, and on the basis of that we have to explain the term what that the two major part of your economics that you have to study in this particular course. One is called the microeconomics and second the macroeconomics, and these are the concepts to be covered in micro and macroeconomics. After that we start with the term what are the other key terms, but before proceeding into those other key terms we have to start with the term what you know, what are the main assumptions. The main assumptions consist of your let us say the scarcity. The assumptions of economics is the major assumption is to be the scarcity. Then what is the meaning of the scarcity? Because here the resources are not unlimited, we have limited number of resources, that you have to remember. We always deal with the limited resources, whether the time, whether the anything you can take into account. Second part, there is always a trade off, because we take into account the which is the next best. Suppose I have some sort of things to be consuming for my tiffin, whether I would be go for the fast food stall or move to the any other snacks. Always there is a trade off. We have to take which one is the better for me, right? How much available resources you have and how to utilizing those in between, whether you have to invest on, I mean the spend on X commodity or the product, or you have to spend on the Y commodity or the Y product. So, always there is a trade off. That trade off always to be there, that is the most part of your assumptions of the economics. Next, the self interest. The each and every respondents, whether the individuals, whether the firms, anything you can take into account, the self interest is required, because intention, if there is a self motivated, if there is no motivation is to be there, nothing to be returned, then you can't invest there. If there is no such returns are there, then you are unable, hesitate to spend, hesitate to provide the time to that also be. That is the another things you have to remember in economics. Then always every sort of decisions it will be taken into account in the two things. One is called in the marginal point of view. Marginal point of view means we take the terms marginal benefit as well as the marginal cost. If I do these things, how much benefit to me, how much benefit to society also be. Let us say for example, government imposes the tax, it collect the revenue from the tax. If I collect the tax from the general public, the public to be sacrifice certain things, and those collected revenue must have to be invest on the behalf of the public, and during that time period the public to be get benefited from it. Then how, what is the marginal benefit and what is the marginal sacrifice they have to take into account, we have to comparing that part. While you are taxing the people, while you are spending it, the government must have to be taken into account the cost benefit analysis. Like government, each and every individual concept also be take care of the marginal concept, both cost benefit analysis, that the marginal cost as well as the marginal benefits. Then in real life situations, all economics concepts can be better way we are able to understand if there is a model to be expressed, if they are explaining the whole part with the help of the graph and models, right. Like in the previous class we explained the terms, the model like the what is called the circular flow, how the flow of money to be takes place from the farms to the household and household to the farms. If you are preparing a particular model, then it is very easy to understand. Actually in the same manner the expression of the production possibility curve, like that we have to study in microeconomics and as well as the macroeconomics, the huge amount of curves are there, diagrams are there, then how we have to trace, because the complicated concept can be elaborated, simplified with the help of those simple graphs and table. Now, before move to the next key terms, that the most important key terms, next one is to be like what is called the investment. Investment. Investment means the money spent by the business to improve the productions. In simple manner, how much money you have to spend in business to improve the productivity or something else, that they call the investment. On the basis of that, government spend certain things, we people also we spend certain things. If you take it to the individuals, we spend some time in the studies, we take some time in the watching the movies, we take this time with the, we have to spend some time with the help of in the family as well as the friends and so on. So, the valuable time we are going to be invest, because these are the times that the things that the investment. Why the term investment to be there? Because there is certain return from it. You will spend something to be there, not only always the in economics we take over the money sense, but in the real life situation you can say if you spend some time, if you invest certain times, then you find that is a return is there, and the return is the that is called the तमाने कौन जानिछ तर खुशी पाइबाटा. So खुशी पाइबाटा केतले पाइबो जितेबेले तमे समय देई परिबो. You have to, let us say best time you have to spend with the friends, you get some benefited from the friends, not to the bad friends. You have to choose with the good friend and bad friend, right. So while you spend some time with a good friend, definitely you have to receiving certain things from him, and that is the return of the investment of the time. Actually in the same manner in economics, while you deal with the the choice situation, decision making, you have to spend some amount in the business to get some return from it. That is the concept of investment. The next one is to be consumer goods. Consumers goods. What do you mean by the consumers? Consumer goods means, now those goods who satisfy the consumer directly. Let us say I will enter into my intention to be consuming one ice cream. That ice cream, the cone, while you purchasing it from the ice cream shop, that the consumer goods. Consumer goods means that particular goods which will satisfy the consumer directly. So, that is called the consumer goods, like the chalk, like a duster, like a pen, like anything you can take into example, those are called the consumer goods. Next comes to the capital goods. Capital goods. Consumer goods, next one is the capital goods. Capital goods in the sense those goods which satisfy the producer directly, like the all kind of machineries, those things satisfies us indirectly. Let us for example, suppose my intention to purchase a particular book, that book is to be directly satisfy the consumer, but in order to preparing that particular book, the press is the producer of that particular book preparing a particular press, printing machine is there, composing machine is there, some person to be involved in that process. Those are not, we are not consuming, we are not demanding those persons, we are not demanding those machineries, rather we demand a book, because book directly satisfy us, that is the consumer goods, but indirectly we demanded the machineries. Those machineries not demanded by us, rather those things to be demanded by the producers. So, those are called the producers goods, or is called the capital goods. That means, goods used to make the consumer goods, that is called the capital goods. After that, what do you mean by human capital? Human capital, like if you take the persons, individual persons having some sort of skill, that skill is to be known as the human resource, and those to be utilized in the production process, then it comes to the human capital. What is a capital goods in the previous case? Capital goods means the producer demanded certain things to produce the consumer's goods. Producer demanded certain things to produce the consumer's goods, that is called as the capital goods. In the same sense, if you take the terms of the human resources, let us say the skill labor, the labor having some skill, that skill to be treated as the human capital. The knowledge of a particular person's, the power that means the bodybuilding power of a particular person will be utilized in the production process, and the producer demanded that particular persons to producing the using it in order to produce the consumer's goods, and that part is called as the human capital. That means the knowledge, the resources, the skill what the laborers have to be used in the production process is to be nothing but the human capital. Now, the last part of it, that is called as the factors of productions. Factors of productions. We know that the 4 basic factors of productions are there, like your land, labor, then land, labor, capital, and that is called the, you can take the organizations or the entrepreneurs. Organizations or entrepreneur. So, the land, which is the free gift of the nature, okay, the supply of the land is fixed, and the free gift of the nature should not be moved from one place to the another place, that the concept of the land, right. And the labor, the skill, the human resources, okay, it is the labor, not the laborer. The laborer means shramika ami kahuche, but labor means shrama, shramadhan jo karuche ame, right. The mental and physical exertions of a particular laborer, okay, that is called as the labor, right. And remember, let us say if you spend some time in your homework, let us say to cleaning the house or something else, your dresses and so on, and preparing the dishes for you also or the family, that is to be not to be treated as a labor. Similarly, the mother service to the baby is not called as a labor, because the baby in returns in lieu of it not pay anything to the mother. So, in labor means in economics the mental and physical exertion backed by certain payment, without payment nothing to be called as a labor, right. Then capital already to be explained to you, the concept of the investment, right. That means the money, the amount of the things which is to be going to be invest in the production process which help in the further productions. It is the produce means of the productions, right. And organizations or the entrepreneur, it is a kingpin in the productions process, it will be utilizing all other factors of productions in such a way to manufacturing the whole product. That the concept what you deal with the terms organizations or the entrepreneur. Beside these things, beside these key terms, now what are the move to the term what is called the economic system. In economic system, you have to take into account the three types of economic system. One is economic system means that means the method used by the society to producing the terms or producing the goods and services to distributing it. We have to producing some goods and services, how we have to be distributing that part to the general public. That the concept of the economic system, and that economic system to be categorized into three parts. One is called the capitalist economic system, socialistic economic system and the mixed economy. Socialistic economy, capitalist economy and mixed economy. In socialistic economy, that means here the government is all things to be coordinated by the government. Government we have to take into account to decide what to produce, how much to produce, how to distribute it, government deciding it, right. But in that is called the command economy. But in case of the capitalist economy like US, right, in that case what you find, in that case it is a free market economy. That means it is the provider, the producer, each and every individual producer are free to produce any sort of goods and services, how much to be produced and how to distributing it, that will be completely depending upon those private persons. That is the free market economy. In the previous case socialistic economy, it is like Russia, China, in those cases what you find, the government decide what to produce, what not to produce and how to distributing it. But like India, it is a mixed economy, it is a mixture of both socialistic economic part and the capitalist economy. That means some part to be produced by the private producers, some part to be produced by the government and also with the distributing it, and government also with some control over those private producers, that is called the mixed economy. So, this is the terms the economic systems, these are the basic key concepts of your key terms of the economic, and in the coming class we have to start with the terms. What are the terms disagrees of the economists and what are the points on which the economists are to disagree, that we have to study in the coming class. Thank you for today.